What is going on, everyone? My name is Andy. Welcome back to another FPL video. In this one, it's transfer tips for Game Week 23. So I'm going to go through some of the popular players being put into people's teams or being taken out and give my opinion on whether they are good moves or not. So let's get into it. So let's start with Anthony Gordon and Bruno G. There's been a few questions about what to do with them moving forward. I think from the perspective of a non-owner, I wouldn't buy any Newcastle players right now. Aston Villa at home in 23 is not terrible. Neither is Brentford at home in 25. But between game weeks 24 and 27, it's 3 away games. And 2 of them are Liverpool and City, and the other one is Spurs. And by that point, Spurs might have a new manager. So you don't quite know whether that fixture might get a little bit more difficult than it looks right now. So I wouldn't buy either of them, even though Bruno G. has obviously done well this season. If you own them, I think there's every reason to give them game week 23. And it's not because I look at that fixture against Aston Villa and think it's super easy, but it is at home. It's not terrible. And ultimately, I don't think game week 23 is a great week to buy midfielders. I think a lot of your decisions could be put off until game week 24. Bruno Fernandes, I know I mentioned him a lot yesterday. Let's say you've got Gordon and the money to go to Bruno. Would I do that this week? I'm not sure I would. Arsenal away just puts me off so much. You can do it in game week 24. If you're going to get priced out, then fair enough, go for it. Because from game week 24 onwards, you're not going to want Gordon. You're definitely going to want Bruno. But outside of that, I would just probably keep the guy against Villa at home instead. It's a similar conversation with Chelsea players like Enzo Fernandez. Pretty good option, 24 to 27. The fixtures are great. But is he better than Gordon this week when he's got Palace away? Probably not. So although Gordon has been super frustrating, the early subs are so annoying, I would in most cases probably keep him. And I would definitely keep Bruno G. one more week. Because he probably will start, as he always does. And when he does start, he gets 90 minutes, pretty much every single game. And also at this point, with the Gordon early subs, and the fact that Viss is there to play number 9 at times as well, there is quite a bit of Newcastle games at the moment where Bruno G. is first choice penalty taker because Gordon and Voltemada aren't on the pitch. Now, it's not going to be the full 90 minutes, but it could be like 20, 30 minutes. You never know, right? You might get lucky like you did the other day. Plus, he's got other routes to points as well. So, unless you're in a rush to get someone this week specifically, I think they can be held for one more week. From 24 onwards, I'd probably be looking to let them go. Not that Bruno G. would become must-sell, because it's very rare a player is must-sell when they start pretty much every game and play 90 minutes. But I think you can look to move them both on from that point. So Antoine Semenyo started the game against Man United in game week 22, which I think most of us were expecting, to be fair. But what was nice is that he played the full 90 minutes. And at the moment, he's not eligible to play for Man City in the Champions League at this stage. So he's not going to play midweek. And Pep probably will want to put out a fairly full-strength side in both of the remaining Champions League games because they'll want to finish top 8 to avoid having 2 playoff matches. So it seems quite likely there will be some rotation against Wolves, maybe not a huge amount, but some. I think Semenyo starts again. And for that reason, if you've got him, there is no need to sell him. It shouldn't even be coming into your mind, in my opinion, about thinking of getting rid. Is there a chance he gets benched? Of course, he's a Man City player, but the prediction has to be that he starts against Wolves. So you've got to keep him. Would I buy him right now? Probably not. That's basically the same stance I had last week. Like 24 to 27, Spurs away, Liverpool away, Fulham at home, Newcastle at home. If he's going to play 90 minutes in every single one of those games, then he's not a terrible pick, absolutely. But is that going to happen? Not necessarily. Like, we shouldn't now have the opinion that Semenyo is absolutely nailed for 90 minutes every game, because how often does that happen for a Man City player? Not very much. Now, to be fair, there has been a large majority of the season where Pep hasn't done a huge amount of rotation, but that doesn't mean it won't happen. So I just don't think the fixtures are good enough longer term to risk his minutes. So I would not buy him. But if you've got him, like, you keep him for Wolves. That seems pretty simple. Let's talk about Wirtz and Ekitike next. Wirtz is picking up a bit more ownership over the last few weeks. He's got 3 10-pointers in the last 5 games. And Ekitike obviously was brought by a lot of people a few weeks ago. And now people are wondering what to do with him moving forward because he has blanked quite a lot in the games that he's played. I think this is a similar situation to the Newcastle midfielders. If you've got them, I would be keeping for Bournemouth away. It already didn't look like a bad fixture, and in the game last night against Brighton, they've lost even more players. So the squad is starting to look a little bit thin, and it's just not a terrible fixture. So if I own Wirtz or Ekitike, I would almost certainly keep. The only circumstance I could see to sell Ekitike is if you need money for another move in midfield. But again, can that be put off until game week 24 potentially? Because Bournemouth away is not terrible. So I think I would keep Ekitike and Wirtz. The reason I wouldn't buy them is because straight afterwards it's Newcastle at home, City at home. You're just not quite sure how those kind of games are going to go. But also, the really nice fixtures for Liverpool, or the better fixture run, I should say, starts in game week 26. So they've got Sunderland away, Forest away, West Ham at home, Wolves away, Spurs at home. So by delaying any moves to them until then, you get the better fixtures, but you also get to see 3 Premier League games and a couple of Champions League games thrown in as well to see how they set up once Salah is back. Now, I don't necessarily think that Salah goes straight in the team, but I do find it hard to believe he's just going to be put on the bench for most games. I think Slot will want to find a way to work him in. Like, he's their best goal scorer on paper, right? So if he comes in, what happens to the minutes of the rest of them? Presumably, Ekitike plays through the middle, Gakpo plays a lot of minutes on the left, and Wirtz plays number 10. And if Wirtz isn't playing number 10, he probably plays off the left, and maybe Gakpo gets reduced minutes. But we know how much Slot likes to use Gakpo. So I think at this point, if you don't own these Liverpool players, I would wait until game week 26 and reassess. But for this week specifically, I really don't mind keeping them. And by the way, if you get to 24 and you've got other issues to deal with and you don't want a wild card, keeping them for Newcastle at home is not terrible either. It's just not a good enough fixture that I would rush out to buy them. So Ekitike, he's expensive. And personally, I still like... do you know what, actually? I say that. I've said it all along. I didn't want to go for him because he's expensive. It messes up the structure. I want to keep funds in midfield. But to be fair, the funds that I'm keeping in midfield are Saka. And that's not really delivering right now. So if you're happy with the rest of your team, you've got Ekitike. I don't really see a need to rush him out while Isak is injured. I would just hold him until you're absolutely desperate for the money. I think he's absolutely fine. Same with Wirtz. So just treat it as a week-by-week basis. Keep them for Bournemouth, get to 24, don't need to sell them, keep them. And okay, Man City's not great in 25, but then the fixtures afterwards are good. I think they're decent to hold, probably still wouldn't buy until 26. So I spoke yesterday about certain Man United players, which we won't mention by name because I don't want people to get too drunk. And if you don't know what I mean, check the comment section on yesterday's video on YouTube. But I didn't talk all that much about Bryan Mbeumo, and obviously he started number 9 against Man City, he's got his goal as well, and people are interested in him. And let's not forget, although he kind of went down a little bit in terms of FPL points output before he went to AFCON, he was doing pretty well before that, and getting regular minutes under Amorim and putting up really good underlying numbers. I mean, you look at the stats so far this season, 0.38 expected goals per 90, 0.21 expected assists. That's great. And actually, although people have looked at that Man United performance against City and said they're looking great under Carrick, the attack for Man United was already doing quite well. I think for expected goals this year, Man United are second, which is not that bad. And Mbeumo is a big part of that. So he is definitely worth monitoring. I think the same applies for pretty much every Man United player this week. Arsenal away, there is no rush to get him. The big question, a bit like will Dorgu play left wing, is will Mbeumo continue playing number 9? I just do not know the answer to that, unfortunately. The only way we're really going to know is when that Fulham game's gone. Because I suspect the lineup against Arsenal will be pretty similar to the one against City because it works so well. Against Fulham, does he bring other players in? Does Šeško play number 9? Does Cunha play number 9? If that happens, does Mbeumo go to right wing? Does Ahmad get benched? Does Ahmad get played on the left? I just don't know. I think my general feeling towards Mbeumo, I do not see a Man United lineup when he's fit and available without him in it. I just think he's important to that team, and he can play number 9, he can play right wing. I just think Carrick puts him in. Does he get subbed early, like we saw against City? Possibly. Maybe that's a trend that we're going to see. And with the setup that Carrick went with, there are more players on the bench that you can bring on. And there are quite a few versatile players as well. Like we even saw the first time Dorgu played on the wing under Amorim, that was on the right. Cunha also came on and played there. Ahmad can play there, Mbeumo can play there. Mbeumo can play number 9, so can Šeško, so can Cunha. There's no guarantees here. But one thing Man United do have is no other games to play apart from Premier League. They're always going to be fully fresh for the next game. And the fixtures between 24 and 28 are good. The other thing I quite like about Mbeumo, and by the way, I did look at him before that City game. I even put a tweet out. So I've got, it's not just a massive overreaction to that one game. His ownership's quite low. Now, I know people are going to buy him, so it's going to go up. But if you look at someone like Morgan Rogers, who I think is 7.7, there's not a huge amount of difference in price. Rogers is very popular. And by the way, a good pick. The fixtures from 24 to 31, which is going to be the blank game week, they're decent for Villa. And I am looking at Rodgers myself, but I think Mbeumo's ownership will stay a bit lower. And I'm a little bit tempted just to go against Rodgers. So I do really like him from 24 onwards, but there is a bit of a leap of faith that his minutes will be good because we just don't know. I just personally don't see a world where Mbeumo doesn't start. I think he's got to be in that 11. Not as much as Bruno. Obviously, Bruno's the only attacker that's absolutely nailed for pretty much 90 minutes every game. But I suspect if I had to... No, not even suspect. If I had to make a guess of who the second most nailed attacker is, I think it's Mbeumo. And that's not to discredit anyone else. Ahmad's been brilliant. He might well be a really cheap option around the 6 million price we're looking at in a few weeks. I just think if Šeško or Cunha comes in and plays 9, surely Mbeumo just goes right wing. So speaking of Morgan Rodgers, let's discuss him and Ollie Watkins next, because as I've just said, the fixtures from 24 onwards are really good, right up until the blank in game week 31. So you got Brentford at home in 24, followed by Bournemouth away, Brighton at home, Leeds at home, then Wolves away in 28. It gets a little bit trickier in 29, Chelsea at home, but because you've had so many good fixtures before and afterwards, you're not going to care about that. Then it's Man United away in game week 30. Now, maybe that fixture looks a bit more difficult than it does right now, but again, if you've got Rodgers and Watkins, you're not going to be scared of playing them against Man United away. And actually, if you look at the longer term fixtures, in blank game week 31 specifically, it's West Ham at home, which looks good. But actually, if you've already used some of your chips, especially your wild card, the fixtures after that are quite good as well. So 32 is Forest away, 33 is Sunderland at home. Now, there will be some doubles in 34. There will be some doubles in 33 probably. That's the most likely outcome. And there will be a blank in 34. And obviously, we don't yet know what's going to happen with Villa. But overall, the fixtures are just quite nice right up until game week 36. So if you're playing through the blank in 31 and you're not wildcarding afterwards in 32, which is quite a popular strategy right now, Forest away, Sunderland at home are good. So if you want a player that is absolutely nailed for basically 90 minutes every game that doesn't really have a bad fixture coming up, it's basically Morgan Rodgers. And for 7.7 million, I really don't mind that. I still think there's a chance 24 to 31 that Mbeumo could match him, or at least match him, potentially outscore him with lower ownership. But if you want a really decent, solid pick the whole way through, I like Rodgers. If you've got him, you'll definitely keep him. I don't think anyone's even questioning that. There's not a rush to get him before Newcastle away, I don't think. It's not a terrible time to play Newcastle, especially with the extra fixtures they've got in January, but it's not a fixture I would target. But 24 onwards, definitely worth looking at. I actually think it's going to get to the stage over the next few weeks where we start running out of midfield space. Because I've thought about this for my own team, right? Now, Tavernier's got injured. We'll talk about him later. A bit annoying. You could definitely argue that you don't want Saka, but for most people who do that, they would probably just put Rice in. I've got Enzo. Let's say Foden goes to Bruno Fernandes. You've only got one more spot. So Szoboszlai is in there for me. Obviously, he would go. I could go for Rodgers. Let me just put Rodgers in properly there. But then, where does... if you've got a cheap... I've got Tavernier, but you could have Harry Wilson in there, for example. And let's say you've got no money to play with. Where does Mbeumo even fit in? So it does feel like continually, in attack, midfield is where all the options are. Much more so than in the front line. That's why I've kind of stuck to this really cheap forward structure. But either way, Rodgers' good pick. It's just about picking the 5 midfielders you want and then just not worrying about the ones you don't, because you can't own them all, basically, is what I'm trying to say. With Ollie Watkins, I think he is also worth considering for the same reasons as Rodgers. His minutes look good right now. He's clearly first choice number 9, and the fixtures are decent. I wouldn't probably go from Ekitike to Watkins right now. I think that's maybe a decision to come back to later, but I don't think it's probably worth the transfer. But if you're looking to buy a forward new right now, I probably do prefer Watkins just about over Ekitike because he doesn't have that Newcastle at home, Man City at home in 24-25. But again, I prefer to put the decision off until game week 24. The other thing to say about Watkins, they've got rid of Marlon. Surely they bring in another number 9. I know Tammy Abraham's name's been mentioned. I'm not sure whether there's any truth to that. But surely they bring in someone to let Unai Emery manage Watkins' minutes when they need to, because again, you've got other competitions and stuff to play for as well. And we've seen at times this season Watkins' minutes haven't been fully secure. So personally, I'd rather wait until 24 for that move. It's worth saying the transfer window shuts on the Monday after the game week 24 deadline on Saturday. So you're not going to know for sure which players have been sold and brought in by the game week 24 deadline, but you've probably got a good idea of what's going to happen because nothing is like a secret these days. If Aston Villa haven't brought someone, you probably know who they're going to bring in. And depending on who that player is, might give you an indication of how much Unai Emery might use them. So I think from it doesn't matter who Villa buy, Rodgers is going to keep starting. Watkins will start the majority of games, but if they bring someone in to play number 9, they may get some minutes like Marlon did at times. But I think both of them, 24 onwards, looking like really good picks, if you can afford them both. Let's talk about Chalobah next. Chelsea player is going to be very popular between game weeks 24 and 27 for good reason. Just a quick reminder about how good that run is. West Ham at home in 24, followed by Wolves away, Leeds at home, Burnley at home. So if you need a new defender for that run, Chalobah is definitely the one that I would look at. He is actually being brought by quite a few people this week. So he's had similar number of transfers into Gabriel, and only Dorgu has got more. I wouldn't see a rush to do it before Palace away. I know right now on paper it does not look like a bad time to play Crystal Palace. Gay's obviously gone, all the comments from Glasner as well. There's a lot of stuff going on there, but I still wouldn't expect a clean sheet against Palace away necessarily. So unless you're desperate for a new defender or you're on wildcard this week, I'd probably avoid bringing Chalobah in. But 24-27, he looks really good. And if you need a new defender between those game weeks, he is who I would look at. There's no one else at Chelsea I'd really consider apart from Cucurella, and I'm not convinced he's worth paying extra for. I think everyone else, there's just too much risk with the minutes. And by the way, it's not a guarantee that Chalobah will play all 4 of those games. Chelsea will have other fixtures they need to think about as well. So maybe Chalobah gets a rest in one of them, but he is the most likely to play them all. So I would definitely consider it. I would say it's not absolutely essential that you have a Chelsea defender. I know that sounds stupid because the fixtures between 24 and 27 are so good, but some of you might be set up in a way where your current defenders just actually work out quite well in between those weeks. Like if you're on a setup where you've got a cheap goalkeeper and you've got Gabriel and Timber, and most weeks you're playing 3 defenders, well, Gabriel and Timber never get benched. So you only need to have one other good defender. And with rotation, you might be able to cover off Chalobah's fixtures. Because after, and don't get me wrong, your third defender is probably never going to be as good as Chalobah, but it might be close if you just rotate nicely. Because after 27, the fixtures for Chelsea aren't that great. Like Arsenal away, Villa away, Newcastle at home, Everton away. So 3 away games in the 4 game weeks after 27. Then it's City at home, Man United at home. So if you need a new defender and you've got a transfer, you've got 5.5 to spend, 100% Chalobah game week 24. But I think people are going to start talking about Chelsea players as if they're essential, and I'm not sure that's the case. I mean, even going back, this is slightly on a tangent, going back to midfielders, but when I was talking about Rodgers and that, let's say you had Fernandes, Mbeumo, Rodgers, Rice, and then a cheap midfielder like Anderson, Tavernier, Wilson. Is it essential that you get Enzo Fernandez into that midfield? Not really. And again, it's the same conversation, right? You might use a transfer to bring him in, but then if you want him gone again by 28, is he that good for 2 free transfers? Not necessarily. So again, this is not me putting you off buying Chalobah. I think he's great 24 to 27. I'm going to look at him myself, but I don't think it's essential you have Chelsea players. And again, it sounds stupid because the fixtures are that good, but you might have other options that are also good. And also another player to consider that you might want to bring in soon, this is just to check you've got space and the number of transfers, is Munoz. And again, I know that's going to sound really stupid right now because of the situation going on at Palace, but they will probably look a bit better once Sarr is back, once Munoz is back. And as long as Glasner stays, you got Burnley at home 26, Wolves at home 27, Leeds at home 30, and the 2 games in between, Man United away, Spurs away. If he's going to play right wing back under Glasner, we know what he can do in those kind of fixtures. So maybe you want him in 26 rather than getting Chalobah in 24. Just things to consider. Ultimately, Chalobah, extremely good, 24 to 27. So what should Cherki owners do ahead of Wolves at home? Obviously, if you're a non-owner, you're not buying him right now. The minutes aren't secure whatsoever. But if you've got him, it's a pretty good fixture, and there must be a temptation to keep. I think personally, I would lean more towards keeping him and hoping for the best, but there is absolutely no guarantee that he starts that game. And the problem is we can wait until we see the Champions League lineup and then try and guess what Pep's going to do in the Wolves game based on that. But he doesn't necessarily work like that. And also, let's say Cherki starts midweek. Well, is that bad? Because he didn't start against Man United. So is it a bench against Man United, start in the Champions League, bench against Wolves? But if he doesn't start, is that good? because then he's had rest, but that means he hasn't started 2 games. So is it good because he hasn't had, is it good because he's had rest, or is it bad because he hasn't been used for 2 matches? This is the headache with a lot of Man City players. I think I would lean towards keeping, because if he starts, it's a good fixture, but there is no guarantee that he starts that match, no matter what happens in the Champions League. And actually, I think Semenyo will almost certainly start on the right, because he has been rested. He started 3 games already under Pep. I think Doku, if he's fit and available, probably starts on the left. Then you're hoping Cherki starts centrally. And we already know from Pep's press conference ahead of the Champions League game that he said that I think something like Foden's got a few broken bits in his hand, but that he's fine because he's got protection. So presuming that Foden can play, he often starts. So you've got one more central position. Is that going to be for Cherki? Maybe it will be, because it's Wolves at home. Maybe Pep will go for it a little bit more, go a little bit less the defensive players, like someone like Bernardo Silva. You just don't know. All I can say is 24 onwards, I would sell him. It is not worth this headache, not with the fixtures they've got coming up. So risk it if you want. And I think that's probably where I would lean. But you do it knowing that there's no, like, you just cannot be shocked if he's benched against Wolves. So prepare yourself for that. If he gets benched, how am I going to react? If it's going to be bad and you just wish that you would have got rid of him, then just do it before Wolves. So it's a similar conversation with Nico O'Reilly, in that from game week 24 onwards, he's probably got to go. Primary reason being that you're not 100% sure which games he's going to start in. But also, I don't see a huge amount of clean sheets for Man City on the horizon. Like Spurs away 24, Liverpool away 25, Newcastle at home 27. So I think Nico O'Reilly at this point, game week 24 onwards, probably needs to go for most people. Wolves at home, I would be tempted to keep him, especially if Núñez is available for that game. So Pep said that he missed the last game in the Premier League because of illness, and he's not travelling with the Champions League squad either. But if he's back for the weekend and he starts, there might be more reason for Nico O'Reilly to start as well. I saw Luke, who I've had on the channel before, talking about this. Because Rico Lewis had to play right back at the weekend, they probably wanted someone a bit more defensively minded to play left back, which was Ake. Whereas if Núñez is back, maybe O'Reilly also starts as well. So I think even maybe more so than Cherki, than with Cherki, I think there's even more reason to maybe keep O'Reilly and just start him against Wolves at home. The problem you've got with someone like that is obviously he's a defender. The bread and butter is the clean sheets. And if he doesn't start, there's a good chance he comes on. And obviously it will likely be after the 30th minute, so he won't be able to get a clean sheet. That's the risk you run. But again, and this is going to be a theme throughout the week, I think it is quite a good week to roll. I think 24 is way more important to get right than 23, just because of the fixture swings, because of the amount of people wildcarding. If you're not using a chip, you don't want to get left behind. If you make a decision this week you're not sure about, you've lost a transfer to then fix that in 24. So I think for that reason, I would lean towards... And also, it's a good fixture, by the way. Like, if it was Liverpool away this week, I wouldn't be sat here saying risk it. I'd say just get rid. So I think I'd keep O'Reilly, but wait for news. If Núñez is not fit, and then Rico Lewis has to play right back, maybe it'll just be Ake again. And probably more so with Ake than some of the attackers. If he starts midweek, then he probably doesn't start again. I don't think that guy's going to play 3 games in kind of 7 days. So let's wait and see the Champions League. We'll reassess this on Friday in the final thoughts video. But right now I'd lean towards probably keeping O'Reilly and hoping for the best. But 24, get a plan in place to move him on. So I know his ownership is quite low, but some of you would have brought in Marcus Tavernier recently like I did. And unfortunately, he went off with a hamstring problem last night. Did get an 8-pointer, so that was quite nice. Scored the penalty, etc. But it does look like we're going to lose him for the next couple of games. Iriola said this straight after the match. Marcus Tavernier is injured. It's not surprising as he had to play everything in this vicious schedule. We are demanding lots from our players who are fit, and at the end he felt his hamstring, so will be out. He said, we're in a very, very delicate situation. The players we have need help, and the club knows that too. They are trying everything to make signings, and I'm sure they will come. So I think there is probably a little bit of that. He's putting pressure on the board to try and get new signings, but he does literally say he will be out. So I think we should expect him to miss game week 23. It's very unlikely he'll be back for 24 either. And because it's a hamstring, it could be even longer. He might miss 25, 26, etc. Because he's so cheap, if you've got a squad structure where you've got a good few defenders, etc., you could play 4-4-2, whatever it might be, there's not necessarily a rush to sell him. Because depending on what... And it's worth saying that quote I've just spoken about is straight after the game. So I guess he hadn't been fully assessed. We'll get another update on Friday. If Iraola says that he's out for like 2 to 3 weeks, you could make a case to keep him if you can bench him, because the fixtures longer term are pretty good. So 24 is Wolves away. Let's say he misses 25 as well and he's back 26. It's Everton away, West Ham away, Sunderland at home in game week 28. Let me just go to the correct screen here. And then after game week 28, 29 is Brentford at home, 30 is Burnley away, and 31 is Man United at home. And you have got a 5.5 million penalty taken forward that also has fairly okay underlying numbers considering his price. So maybe in some cases it's worth keeping. For those of you that maybe don't have the defence to do that or want to sell him, where'd you go? I guess that depends how much money you've got to spend. Like if you've got a good bit in the bank, you could go up to like an Enzo Fernandez, wouldn't be a terrible option. If we're keeping it, I keep clicking on the wrong screen. If we're keeping it 6 million or below, then obviously Harry Wilson is a player that a lot of people will look at. Interestingly, a couple of minutes before I started recording this section about Tavernier, I've seen that there's a tweet going around from Fabrizio Romano saying that Fulham are looking to sign Oscar Bob. Now, whether he comes straight into the team, I don't know, but obviously he could play off the right. That means Wilson could continue playing number 10, but then there's more competition for places. You've got Iwobi coming back, you've got Chukwueze coming back as well. If Bob's there too, what does that mean for Wilson's minutes? I got to be honest, I know he's done really well, and I know it feels like I'm constantly just looking for excuses not to buy him, but my gut feeling says just don't go there just yet. Wait until the end of the transfer window. And I know that Marco Silva has said that Wilson is going nowhere in January. Does that mean that will actually happen? Or is he trying to put pressure on the board as well? You just don't know. Harry Wilson's out of contract in the summer. If Fulham get a good offer and Wilson's happy to go, could it happen? Maybe. I think the most likely thing is that Wilson signs a new contract and they keep him. But none of this is guaranteed. So it just puts me off a little bit about buying him. But ultimately, if he stays and the minutes continue to be good, which you assume they would be because of how well he's played, the fixtures are great from like now right up until like game week 31. And then after that, it gets a little bit trickier. So I do like Wilson, but personally, I'm probably not going to go there. I think other players under 6 million, if I just go to midfielders and set the price so it's a little bit easier to look at. Garner, obviously 5.2 million, 29 or something defensive contributions the other day. Absolutely crazy. Not a bad option. It's also worth pointing out that Njai will probably be back for game week 23. Senegal did win AFCON, so I'm sure there'll be some celebrations and stuff, but their game against Leeds not till Monday. And obviously they will want to get Njai back and in the team. So Garner at 6.2. Njai, I think, is a little bit more expensive. I think he's... sorry, let me change this. I shouldn't do this on the fly. Yeah, 6.2. So he could be worth looking at as well if you've got a bit more money to spend. And then, again, let me go to the 6 million filter. We'll go to total points. Anderson at 5.3. He's someone I'm really looking at. I'll talk about my team a bit more in the team selection video. But if I need to free up some money, Tavernier to Anderson might be the way that I do it. And he's just constantly ticking up. Like, he's not exciting. He's not going to go and get you like a 10 plus pointer most weeks, but 5-7, 4-4-3, 4-3-4, it's looked at as not that good, but for 5.3 million, that's pretty good value. Like Tavernier got 8 points last night. Happy days. He scored a goal, 8 points. Chances are he would have probably gone like 8-2-2-7 or something like that, which is about 20 points over 4 game weeks. You look what Anderson's done, 12. He scored literally 20 points over the last 4 weeks. His minutes are great. 5.3 million, great value. So Garner, Anderson, Wilson, probably the top options. I'm not really seeing many other players under 6 that I would even consider. Like Stack may or may not be back. Minte, you can't trust the minutes. Same with Reinders. Enzo Lefebvre, to be fair, 4.9 million. If he's going to continue to start every match, not bad. And on penalties, presumably. West Ham away, Burnley at home next 2. And actually, the fixtures aren't bad overall. There's going to be some weeks you want to bench him, like 25 Arsenal away. But he's not a terrible option. So I would consider him. And I like the fact you go all the way down to 4.9. Dewsbury Hall is apparently back in some kind of training, not full training yet. He's just not going to be an option for the next few weeks, unfortunately. That is about it, I think. I don't think there's any other players I would consider. So Wilson, Garner, Anderson, and Enzo Lefebvre. I think that's the only players under 6 million. There is probably someone I'm missing because I'm looking at this by total. Like Utara, if he can get back in the team, 5.8, not bad. Brentford fixtures very good from 27 onwards, but not really one to buy right now. I'm sorted by total points. There's probably some players I'm missing, but I think that's about it. Yeah, I think Anderson if you want to save some money, Wilson if you want to go up a little bit, or Garner if you just want him instead. So yeah, Tavernier. Have I really spent the most time talking about Tavernier, a guy that's 2.6% ownership? Again, whatever, right? It's done now. Thanks for watching. Give it a like, hit that subscribe button, and I'll be back tomorrow for Game Week preview. I'll see you then.